there, this is Carrie Gatto with Big Picture Realty, a team of Keller Williams Realty. And today I'm interviewing another local business owner. I have David Sandberg here with me from the co-owner of Porter Square Books, located in Somerville. Welcome, David.
Hi,
Hi,
thanks
good to
for
see
having
you.
me.
You are
Good to be here.
welcome. So to start us off with the interview, can you briefly describe your business?
Sure. Well, we're a bookstore. We sell new books only, not used books. We've been in Porter Square for almost 20 years. The bookstore started in 2004. My wife and I bought it in 2013. It's a general bookstore. We have a few, we have very strong fiction, poetry, history, sections and a very large children's section, but we're a general bookstore. We sell all kinds of books, and whatever we don't have on the store, we order for people. We've got a staff of about 30 people, and our main store is in Porter Square, as you say, in Cambridge on the Somerville line. But we also, this past fall, opened a second store downtown on the waterfront near the ICA.
Congratulations, I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah.
Good for you. And David, where are you originally from?
Well, let's see, I grew up in New York, in the suburbs of New York until I was in about junior high school. And then the rest of my childhood was in the Midwest in Kansas City. But I came to the Northeast for college and graduate school, and I've been in Boston now, in the Boston area, since around 35 years, so like mid 86, 87.
You're pretty settled at this point.
Yeah, I've lived all those 35 years in either Cambridge or Somerville.
Wow, awesome. And what made you decide to open your business?
Well, we didn't open it; it was already there.
Okay.
We we were. It was actually our local favorite bookstore. My wife and I were both in our mid 50s doing other things. I'm a lawyer by training, and she's a teacher, and we were in our other jobs. And we found out that the people that owned Porter Square, that had founded it in 2004, were retiring because they were a little older than us, and were selling the bookstore. And we both thought that would be a great thing to do. Our youngest kid was about to leave for college. I had been working at Google for a few years after they bought my company, and like I say, my wife had been teaching. We were both ready to think about doing something different, and we loved the bookstore, and so we decided to buy it and change careers.
Wow, that's amazing. It's really cool. And what drives you to do what you do, or what motivates you?
Um, well, I think the most important thing about Porter Square Books is it's really a community bookstore. It's having lived in Cambridge and Somerville for so long, I have a lot of really deep roots to the community through you know all the years of my kids being in school and various nonprofits and governmental things that I've been involved in. And the bookstore really is a local institution. Its customer base is local. Um, I personally know a significant percentage of the people that walk in the door because one way or the other, we've come across each other over the years here in town.
Wow.
And so it's really, to me, the most exciting thing about it is that it's a local business. Um, and when we first bought it, that was a lot of the excitement about us buying it because the people that had started it and owned it before us, they did a great job, but none of them are from around here. They're from the western suburbs. And um, and it was actually big news in Cambridge that a Cambridge couple was buying the bookstore. So I think our customers appreciate even more that we're local, very local, and that's even perpetuated and enhanced the bookstore's status as a community institution. We also, about 5 years ago or 4 years ago, sold half the bookstore to a group of our employees. And I think that also made a big difference in terms of how our customers and how the community see us, because it's really a great long-term strategy for making sure the bookstore stays very embedded in and part of the community. It's also
Yeah, I
fun
hear
that
that.
I get to talk about books all day long, and so there's also that. That's it. I mean, I
You love
wouldn't have
books.
wanted to buy. I would. I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to buy a local shoe store. Um,
Right,
it's not. It wasn't because this was retail that I wanted to do it. It was because it was books that I wanted to do it.
for sure. Yeah, and I was going to say, I keep hearing that theme of community coming up again and again as I talk to local business owners. And I just love that
Mhm.
the local businesses are such a part of the community.
Well,
It's
Cambridge and
really
Somerville are
important.
also Cambridge and Somerville are really good about supporting local business. I mean, I go to national conferences all the time, and I talk to people in other parts of the country. And I don't think we're unique, but I certainly think you can't take it for granted that you're going to be in a community where people really care about local business. And Cambridge and Somerville both have strong local business associations. They've managed to do a good job of indoctrinating, for lack of a better word, people that it's important to shop local and support your local businesses. And so we're really happy and lucky to be in a community that really values that.
And why do you think it's important for people to shop local?
Um, well, I'd say there's mainly two reasons. One is economic, which is when you shop local, you keep the money in your own community. In our case, as I said, we're not. It's not just that Dina and I, who own the bookstore, are local. We only own half of it. The people that own the other half are also local. So number one, and all our employees are local. So you're keeping the money here, and money that gets spent in in Cambridge or Somerville ends up back in the community. And we support, places like, I don't want to say their name, but that big company that begins with A. They don't
Mhm.
do anything for the local community. Um,
Right.
the the other so one reason is just the financial benefit, but I think the other one is, as we saw during the pandemic, unfortunately, with a lot of businesses, none of the local bookstores, but with a lot of other businesses, if you don't support local businesses, they go away. And I don't think any one of us wants to be living in the world of Home Depot and Barnes and Noble and whatever, instead of
Mhm.
a local bookstore and a local hardware store and everything else. And we always used to say, look, you have to support your local businesses if you want them to be here. But I think people really dramatically saw that in action over the last 2 years, that
Yeah,
a lot of businesses they may have taken for granted weren't here anymore. And so everyone, whenever they do surveys of people about towns, they say, what's the most important thing to have in a town to make it, a good place to live? Bookstore is always very high on the list of things that a town needs to have to be a good place. And so Cambridge is lucky that it has two. I mean, a couple of used bookstores, but in terms of new bookstores, Cambridge has two. Somerville sadly doesn't anymore. I mean, we're on the very, very, very edge of Somerville, like our parking lot ends in Somerville. But technically, there's no longer any bookstores in Somerville selling new books, and that's sad. There's a lot of communities around that used to have bookstores that don't anymore. So we really need to be very jealously guarding the ones that we have.
absolutely. What's something most people don't know about your business?
Hmm. Um, I don't think people understand how much work goes into, and I can say this because I don't do any of this work, but how much work
Mhm.
goes into understanding what to buy. Um, you know, at any given time, there's probably 30,000 on the shelves of our bookstore.
Wow.
At any given time, there's more than a million titles in print. So the fact that you can come into Porter Square Books And most of the time, when you ask for a book, we can say, oh, yeah, it's right over here, is an extraordinary skill that I think people take for granted because they just walk into the bookstore and they expect to find the book that they want. But it's not at all trivially easy to make sure that that's the case. I mean, of course, we can always order books that we don't have on the shelf, and we order lots and lots and lots of books for people that we don't have in the store. But the fact that I won't put a percentage on it, but a very high percentage of the people who come into the store to look for a book are going to find that book on the shelf is something that is incredibly difficult for our buyers to do. And like I say, I can take a lot of credit because I'm not one of them, but for them to be able to do that job well, and for you to be able to find what you want on the shelf when you come into the store, I think is something that people have no idea how much work goes into that happening.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The vastness of options out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and how long have you said you lived in the neighborhood for 35 years, right? Cambridge
Well,
or
different parts.
Somerville?
I mean, Cambridge or Somerville, yeah,
Hmm. And
in
what
all
do you
different
love
parts
most?
of town.
Okay. What do you love
Yeah.
most about the neighborhood?
Um, I think it's the ideal mix of urban and not urban. I don't really like the suburbs. I grew up in the suburbs until I left home to go to college. I've never lived in the suburbs since I finished college. Um, and I've lived in the big city. I lived in New York for many years. And I don't, that was not particularly for me. I wouldn't live right now in downtown Boston. Um, but I think that Cambridge and Somerville both uh, have the feel of the city, and obviously the city's very close. The things that I love about the city, which is there's lots of shops and restaurants and places to go. Everything is walkable or bikeable. People live close enough together that you know your neighbors. It has all those things, but yet it also has some of the or many of the advantages of the suburbs. I have a small backyard, and there's places to go running and
Yeah.
bring my dog and things like that. So I do think that we're this great mix of urban and suburban. The other thing is that it's it's Cambridge and Somerville in terms of the academic institutions that are around, the level of cultural sophistication in the city, obviously the politics. I think it's very um, close to where I want to be. I haven't traveled a lot, but I've traveled a fair amount, and I haven't been to too many other places in the United States that I think have that combination of factors that are also really good places to live. Um, I guess the weather could bear some improvement, but other than that, I can't imagine anyone would live anywhere else. I
That's so
say that
great.
to you on a day where the high outside is 12 degrees.
Yeah. Good day to stop in a bookstore and grab a book
Oh, great day to
with a
stop
hot
at a
drink.
bookstore. Oh, the other thing I'll say, that when you asked before about why people love the bookstore, we also have a cafe in the bookstore. We don't own the
Ah,
cafe,
good to know.
a friend of ours, but it is a
Ah,
wonderful cafe. And coffee, tea, and hot chocolate are really good things to go inside and get on a day like today.
sounds perfect. Really good to know. What do you do besides work, David?
What
Any
do I do
hobbies?
besides work?
I'm imagining reading
Um,
is one of them.
I do read a lot. I read both on traditional paper. Well, I don't read electronic books, but I do listen to audiobooks mostly when I'm running. Um, Spend a lot of time with my dog because we have a new dog, and she's still a puppy, so she takes up a lot of our time. Um, our kids are both moved away, so they don't get to take up nearly as much of our time as they used to. Um, I sometimes do musical theater. I used to sing a lot. I don't as much anymore. Um, I travel. We get to travel a fair amount, and so I like traveling. I unlike my wife, whose full-time job is the bookstore, I only work in the bookstore half-time. And with the other half of my time, I sort of continue the work I used to do, which is I work with small startup technology companies, advising them on legal and business stuff. And I still do some of that in my spare time. I pick some companies that are fun to work with and help them out.
That's so cool. All right. And what's the best way to contact you?
Well, the two best ways to contact me are my super easy email address, which is david@portersquarebooks.com, and or the old-fashioned telephone, which I think a small number of people, mostly over the age of 50, still use, um, which is 617-491-2220. You could probably send me a fax, but I don't think our fax machine has been working in months, and we didn't even notice because no one faxes anyone anymore. But always the best way to contact me is by email.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you so much, David, for the interview. And
Oh,
gosh, I learned a lot today. You have a new location, you have a cafe in the bookstore, and you have a lot going on. And thank you for being a local business owner.
oh, it's my pleasure.
I appreciate you. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Definitely stop by Porter Square Books when you have a chance. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.